Hello friends, Siddhi Bangard here. And today again, I'm here with daily news analysis for 13th of May. And there are a lot of important announcements which happened yesterday. So we'll be covering all of them in depth so that we know where the country's vision is headed post loosening of coronavirus lockdown. So let's begin. I would begin by first introducing myself. So my name is Siddhi Bangard, and I did my graduation from BIT Mesra in Computer Sciences Engineering and graduated with the batch of 2011, post which I appeared for civil services. And then I did my MBA in HR from XLRI Jamshedpur and graduated with the batch of 2018. I have a cumulative teaching experience of 3 years, and I've also mentored students for civil services and MBA interviews. I love to play cards, and I'm a fitness enthusiast. Before we begin, I would like to list some of the features of an academy. So we have daily life classes like we are having right now. And in these classes, I will be bringing you the most comprehensive news analysis, which is very relevant for mains and prelims, because I will not be picking up just the news and delivering it to you, because then you can read the newspaper itself, but we'll be analyzing it from the perspective of the mains and prelims, or the kind of questions that are UPSC's requirement. Again, then we have live tests and quizzes. So if you are an academy subscriber and you have subscribed to our UPSC CSE category, you get live tests and quizzes, which is given by all the faculty so that you can hone your preparation better. We also provide structured courses. In fact, I'm running one of the courses on Unacademy platform under the science and technology category in the UPSC CSE English category, where I'll be teaching 200 most important topics for UPSC 2020 in 200 words each, where we'll summarize the entire 200 topics into 200 words each, so that when you go and write in the exam, you really don't have to recall anything. You already remember what you've read. Lastly, one subscription to the category, say UPSC CSE category, will give you an access or unlimited access to all the live and recorded courses. And not just that, you'll also get access to all the upcoming courses. So there are a lot of educators here which keep on coming and launching their courses. You can find what is most relevant for you, so you don't have to go to different classes to attend different lectures. You can get it all under one roof. And of course, it goes without saying, it's one of the largest platforms, so you have the most experienced and well educated and experienced educators on an academy. Coming to the fee part of it, so at present we have actually reduced the prices of our subscription. So for 12 months, it's now 40,000. And I would personally recommend, since it's a UPSC CSE subscription, it's better that the UPSC 2020 students take a 12-month subscription, and the UPSC 21 students take a 24-month subscription or 2-month subscription, so that you have access to courses that are launched and are incoming for the entire duration of the exam or while you're preparing. The happy news for the 1 month or the for the 1 year or the 2 year subscription is that if you use my code SBUS, SB here stands for Siddhi Bangard Unacademy courses. So if you use that code, you instantly get a 10% discount, which boils it down to 36,000. And for a 2 year subscription, if you use my code, then the 48,000 instantly gets reduced to 43,200. I would recommend that you take a 2 year course if you're preparing for 2021, because it is cheaper than the 1 year course. And just by paying 3,000, just by paying 7 to 8,000 extra, you get the course for the entire 2 year duration. So, friends, let's discuss today's news. So, the news is from Indian Express, and this is today's Indian Express. That's why I put it here. And we'll be covering certain topics from PIB as well. Now, the important thing is that the first thing, the lockdown dosage, it was one of the most important news, because PM Modi actually had his fifth address to the nation during the lockdown, wherein the first news was that the lockdown will be extended. But what about revival of the economy? What about livelihood of the people? What about, the labor reforms, the migrant laborers? How are we going to help them? How are we going to help the MSMEs? How are we going to address the liquidity situation in the market. So, and there is a total chaos because we don't know what actually specific laws apply to us during the lockdowns. There are, say, around 8,000 cases registered just under Section 188, wherein if you move out during the lockdown, you are penalized for it. So, coming here, in this article, there were a couple of important news. First, it was the fifth in the series of the addresses that PM Modi has made. I will also be covering a detailed video on how PM Modi's address to the nation has changed as coronavirus has evolved. So it was like first he said that jahan hai wahan hi rahe. That means stay wherever you are. Then he changed it to that do gaj ki duri bahut zaruri. And then he changed it to Jan Bhi Jahan Bhi, that we will be standing by the world. We will be helping the world to actually sail through this crisis as much as we are going to help ourselves. And INS Kesari was one step forward in that we sent medicines and other essential items to all the Western Island countries for the first time, except for Sri Lanka. We went to all the Western Island countries like Madagascar, Maldives, Mauritius, Comoros. So we're actually doing our bit wherever we can. And lastly, the slogan that he gave yesterday, that it'll be an Atma Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, that is self-reliance Bharat Abhiyan. Why so? Because as per him, in fact, as per what we are noticing all around the world, what has been happening is in this time, globalization has actually taken a hit. The nations have been left to fend on their own apart from certain know-how, technical know-how that we can exchange, or maybe certain medicines we can exchange, because transportation communication was a big link that was actually facilitating globalization. So all in all, what the governments around the world are noticing is that at some level you have to be self-reliant to match the vicissitudes of the dynamic world where we don't know what disaster or what other calamity might come next. In fact, our laws itself were not as futuristic looking. In fact, the National Disaster Management Act itself did not cover a disaster like this, that there might be a pandemic because of a virus which we can't even see. So, self reliance here means that if something like this happens again, the we could contain the impact of that, and we have enough, our supply chains are not completely disrupted. Likewise, what is happening right now, in fact, it is happening both externally as well as internally. Since China was hit, the global supply chains got hit because it was the source of supply. And secondly, internally also the supply chains are hit because there are certain areas which are hotspots and there are certain areas which are green zones where we can carry out the manufacturing activity. But how do you bring the raw materials from a hotspot area to a green zone area? Or how do you actually market your products to hotspot areas or other areas? So that has become very, very difficult. So self-reliance, as per PM Modi, is basically will prepare India for tough competition in the global supply chain right now, which is dominated by China. So you can say it's an inclination, or it's illusion towards China, that we will actually be now really going ahead with our manufacturing concerns and try to make us self-reliant. The next is, he gave an example for a similar thing. Now, it's a very beautiful example because, we always thought that maybe it'll take us a couple of years to actually become that manufacturing giant that, we used to look up to China to become something like that. But he pointed out that the India actually converted the crisis into an opportunity, and that's why it's a beautiful example that in this tragedy or tragic times we saw an opportunity. And when we started off, if you guys have been going through newspapers or news on television, there was a lot of hue and cry that we don't have the PPE kits, we don't have the masks, and now we are actually manufacturing 2 lakh PPEs and N95 masks each daily. Now, N95 was also in use because it's a mask which actually blocks the virus, and it can be made reusable by heating it to a certain temperature. And they're very popular when it comes to containing respiratory infections. So please remember this technology. Next. Now, what he also says is that our self reliance will not be a self centered system. we would actually want to develop global supply chains so that in times of crisis, India is there. As you all know, we supplied the malaria drug to US in times of crisis, and they were assured that when the vaccine first develops, they'll send it back to India. Next, the most important thing that he pointed out, or the highlight of yesterday's address, was uh, that there'll be an economic package of 20 lakh crores, right? This is almost 10% of our GDP. Now, if anybody remembers, or if you've seen my last lecture, we discussed that we had the first stimulus package of around 1.7 lakh crores, which was 0.35% of our GDP. It was immediately declared after the lockdown on 26th March. It was called Garib Kalyan Yojana, wherein almost 6,000 crores of money was transferred to the accounts of poor through direct benefit transfer. Now, we were actually all around the world, economists were waiting that India would be providing another fiscal stimulus, as I discussed yesterday. So, this is our second fiscal stimulus, and they were also saying that India cannot do it in bits and pieces. That is, you cannot have a 1% of GDP fiscal stimulus or 2% because it is not going to cut the mark, and we need to be somewhere close to the G20 countries. So it is somewhere of the level of the stimulus package that other G20 countries have given. For example, America has given 225 lakh crores. So that's a huge, huge amount, and that's a huge part of their GDP, somewhere between 10 to 20% of their GDP. Now, coming to where will this economic package be actually applied? So the Prime Minister did not detail out it. It will be detailed out by Nirmala Sitharaman at 4 p.m. today, and I'll be taking the lecture on that in detail also, so that we know what are the themes, what are the sectors that are getting benefited by it. But the theme that he gave was land, labor, liquidity, and law. So you can remember it by 4 Ls. Why it is very important is because in the mains examination this time, there will be definitely a question centering around one or four of these themes, or maybe it can include all the four themes. So it's very easy to remember 4 Ls. Land is important in a country like India. Labor, of course, we've been talking about it. Liquidity, as I've been continuously talking about the fiscal deficit part of it, or how we require a fiscal stimulus, how we need more money in the market so people spend and the economy is revived. And laws, because labor laws have been in constant news. So these 4 Ls become very, very important. Lastly, he also made an allusion towards the fourth stage of lockdown, how it will look like. He said it's going to be different. Why that? So I'll be taking it further down also, but here I would like to mention that it'll be different for two reasons. Primarily, because we have realized that we actually cannot have a containment strategy, and we have to learn to live with the virus. So we need to make changes to our earlier strategy of actually totally eliminating the virus, because it's not so easily controllable. So how do we have to follow the social distancing norms? What are the things that are going to change in the post corona world? How is the workforce going to be aligned? How is the environment going to be aligned? How is the industry going to be aligned? How are the laws going to be aligned? We have to change the laws extensively. And how is the digitization initiative to be taken forward? How will the manufacturing firms start working if their social distancing has to be practiced? How the education sector will actually go ahead? Is it time for online education only? How will the exams be shifted? So there is a lot of things that will come in this lockdown. And what kind of social amalgamation can we do going ahead in the post-corona world? And the second reason was we also realized that we will need to take inputs from the states. Earlier, when the first lockdown started, so under the National Disaster Management Act, the government took full control and started, sending guidelines to the states around green, red, and orange zones, and the states started implementing that. Now they have realized that since we cannot actually eliminate the virus, and it is there to stay, so the central government actually, looking from the top, cannot do much. What we have to do is devolve the power. So here is the center, here is the state, and here is the local thing, the local government, the three tier of government. We will actually have to devolve power here, because center government cannot be present everywhere. It can only give finances or broad directions. right? Because the state officials or the chief minister is in better know-how of the ground realities of the state or the districts, and the local administration is actually in a better touch to the ground realities of villages or municipal corporations, ground to the down to the granular level. So the power will have to be actually devolved. It is kind of having the 73rd and 74th amendments to the constitution all over again, where you devolve power, understanding that you cannot rule from the center. So this takes us to our the second part of the same article. Now here we will be actually talking about the details of the package, some of the details which have come up till now. So first, as I already talked, it was a second fiscal stimulus too. Now we can look this fiscal stimulus, the 20 lakh crore package, also in the form of that it has been given to promote self reliance. Now earlier the fiscal stimulus was given. What's the difference? Okay, this is a very important point, and you should pay attention to it. The first fiscal stimulus was actually about helping people to sail through the lockdown. The second fiscal stimulus is actually about self-reliance. Our strategy, the vision that which we are looking at now has completely changed. So this is a very important point to remember. As I already mentioned, this 20 lakh crore is 10% of India's GDP. Now, apart from the four L's, so the four L's were the theme of the 20 lakh crore package. Okay, but what is the theme of this program of self reliance? So there are basically two things. One is the theme of the 20 lakh crores relief package or the fiscal stimulus package, okay, which will be for self reliance. Okay, so the theme gives us where we actually want to spend it. Okay, and the pillars under self reliance will actually give us the concrete areas where we are going to spend that money, so the theme is kind of the constitution where you have a basic guideline, and these five pillars are the places where we are actually going to execute the fiscal stimulus, or the money will actually be executed in these places. So these five pillars are, of course, the economy. First of all, you have to get the economy up and running so that large scale unemployment or poverty, these things do not come back, or at least are not exacerbated by the current situation. Infrastructure, yes, of course, we are still an infrastructure deficient country, or we are not actually using our capital infrastructure properly, so yes, we need to do that. Tech driven system. Now the current situation where social distancing will become a norm, wearing masks will become a norm, digitization is automatically getting a boost, because if you cannot travel, if you have to maintain social distancing, it is better that we take the systems online. It is kind of contactless delivery of services, both at the private sector level and the public sector level. Okay, at the public sector level, you need to take more and more services on the digital platform. At the private sector level, the way the workforce works will have to change, and the way the private organizations are regulated and the governance structures will also have to become very tech driven, and the way they provide services also has to become very tech driven. Basically, we can also say that around the world, it will actually give a boost to the technology companies. And going in the future, a lot of employment is actually be created in the infra and the tech driven systems. In fact, these two might actually collaborate, and the infrastructure sector will get a boost in enabling the digital infrastructure across the nation, like the optical fiber network initiative. Please read about the optical fiber network initiative. Okay, next. Demography is the fourth pillar, that is we the people of India. So we need to take the full use of our demographic dividend. I think that is the biggest thing that we can do to simulate our economy. There's a lot of educated youth, we need to skill it, and put it to good use so that they can use the tech driven system and the infrastructure to revive the economy, demand, and supply chain. If we are to provide a big boost to our manufacturing and become self-reliant, we need to produce things that on our own in our country, because in times like these it becomes very difficult, even in a globalized world, to get what you need from countries around the world. So at least we should have some basic demand and supply chain in place which does not get disrupted so easily. So building resilience in the demand and supply chain. Now, how are we going to actually this 4Ls? What are the ground level or granular level things that will be happening? So by liquidity, if we consider the MSME part, the micro, small, medium enterprises part, here what happens is basically, if you have read the economic survey, or if even if you've not read, just for information I would tell you, a lot of people and are actually involved as or they have their employment generation from the micro, small, and medium enterprises. And if we give a safety net to such enterprises, we actually provide a safety net for poor, because that is where the majority of the population is, which is not having huge assets which can help it sail through crisis like this. So the liquidity part of the 4Ls will actually be there to bolster the liquidity for the micro, small, and medium enterprises. And as I was watching Nirmala Sitharaman's video or the online press conference right now, so they have actually taken 6 steps to promote, to bolster not only the liquidity in the MSMEs, but also to promote employment, to promote their productivity, and to help them become bigger enterprises. That is to graduate from micro to small, from small to medium, and hence and so forth. So, in those, I'll give you a highlight of that. They have said that they will be provided with tax breaks, they will be provided with loan breaks actually. So, they'll be provided collateral free loan, and in which for the first year you don't even have to pay the AMI or the principal amount, and loan will be provided for 4 years. So you're being provided collateral free loan up to like 3 lakh crores. Then they said that they'll be doing the employee provident fund contribution also, which the government has been doing for the past 3 months for employees earning less than 15,000 per month in enterprises where less than 100 people work, 100 or less than 100 people work. So that will also benefit the employees and the employers as well, because it will increase the take home salary of the employees. And similarly, they also said that they will change the definition of micro, small, and medium enterprises. That is, there are certain investment and turnover limits which actually, define what is a micro enterprise, what is a small enterprise, what is a medium enterprise. So, a medium enterprise is one with 20 crores of investment yielding around 100 crores of turnover, and so on and so forth, which I'll be discussing in my other video when I'll be discussing the highlights of the package that has been offered by Nirmala Sitharaman. Today will be the day when they will be discussing the MSME sector or the SOPs provided to the MSME sector in detail. Now, the second will be uh, when it comes to land, we discuss the liquidity part of it. In the land part of which the government or the ministries or the central CPSUs have a lot of surplus land. So monetization of that surplus land uh, will actually yield a lot of money. So that leads us to the land part of it. The third thing is easing of labor regulations. So that is the third L. So we have covered liquidity. Okay, we have covered law. We have covered land. And for law, we have the labor reforms, as a lot of states have already done it, some in the right direction and some in not so right direction. So let's hope we have a good legislation coming up, which actually balances the interest of both the laborers and the industry. Lastly, for liquidity again, okay, we have this tax break for companies investing above a certain threshold in technology. Now, this is basically for, so we said that we'll have tech driven systems. So government, in a bid to incentivize those organizations which are using technologies which are far ahead of their times, they will provide tax breaks to them, so that we bring in a lot of new technology, our people get used to working on new technology, and we have a labor force which is highly skilled. So it will basically achieve all these three objectives just by incentivizing them by tax breaks, which is a very, very important push of the present government. And these areas will generally be the pharma area, the medical devices, and the telecom equipment. These are the major manufacturing areas for us. And here, if we invest, it is going to yield us big results. Lastly, the government said that, you know, actually, the PM said that brands that are global now were once local. Okay, so basically, he said vocal for local was also the slogan given by him. So we have to remember three or four, actually, five important things from what PM said. First, Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Second, the four L's: labor, law, liquidity, and land. Third, the five pillars of the self reliance or the Atmanirbharta Abhiyan, which says that you will be boosting the economy that takes quantum jumps and not incremental gains. So there'll be a spate of reforms which we've never seen before, and be taking some bold steps to achieve those reforms. Infra, tech driven systems, demography, demand and supply. And lastly, vocal for local will be the slogan. That is, we have to turn around our national brands to make them international brands. Why is this important? If you can see the trail, so we are doing the self-reliance abhiyan to actually have very robust demand and supply chains. But how will we have that? If only we have our brands which are international brands, so that we are spread around the world and we can actually aid in making global robust demand and supply chains. Okay. And Nitin Gadkari, he is the MSME minister. He has also indicated that the money that they get after this package has been announced, they are intending to make a revolving 1 lakh crore fund for MSMEs, by which they will be actually ensuring higher working capital to the MSMEs. They will clear the pending dues and and guarantee, give them credit guarantee against loan losses to the MSME, so that the bank lends to them. So basically, what they want to do with the 1 lakh crore fund, in fact, if you go through Nirmala Sitharaman's address right now, she's already said that the loans will be made collateral free, and the government will honor the receivables from the MSMEs and will take action to give the money on the receivables in within 45 days. So Nitin Gadkari said 3 points. They will make a 1 lakh crore revolving fund to enhance the working capital limits for the MSMEs, clear their dues so that liquidity is infused back and they have again working capital to do the work. Third, give credit guarantee against the loan losses that they've already suffered at the hands of the corona lockdown or certain MSMEs which were already stressed. The next, now this is a very important article that came today. So we had a lot of news items actually cover how the migrant laborers were finding it very hard to sustain themselves. We had a lot of articles on how the economy is finding it very hard to revive. We had a lot of articles on how the different nations around the world are trying to gracefully exit from the lockdown, the labor reforms, and how the states want federalism to be actually put into practice. This part, the household, how the Indian households, the masses are holding up during the lockdown, is a very important article, is a very important observation. So I'll be covering it in detail here. Okay, so here are three scholars, and they are from the Wharton School. One is from the chief economist from the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, and another one is from Chicago Booth business school. So what they have said is, first of all, is the data valid which they have taken? Yes, they have taken the data from Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. That's their data source. Okay, which was collected between April 18 and April 30, 2020. So they went. So the CMIE actually went and surveyed the Indian household. CMIE. Okay, here it is. Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. The second thing is, the key findings were that almost 84% of Indian households reported that their household incomes have declined during the corona lockdown. And of them, one third reported that they do not have the money to even buy essentials for the next week. So that's a very, very dire situation. That's around about 34%. Okay. Now we'll be going in the details of the findings. So as you can see here, this graph. Okay, what happens in this graph? This is the quintile, or this is the percentage of people with an income between 0 per capita income per month. This is a per capita per month income between 0 to 3,800. 85% of these people and 66% of the people having a per capita per month income between 12,000 to 1 lakh rupees are actually saying that their household incomes have declined during the coronavirus lockdown. Now, why this is 85% and this is 66%? It is for very obvious reasons. Uh, these are the people who are actually earning very less, and since it's a shutdown and they are not able to earn money and their household incomes have declined. Why this percentage is less? Oh, it's only 60% as compared to 85% here, is because uh, this can be considered the urban salaried class, which can actually stay at home and work. So their incomes have not decreased as much as is reported here. But now comes the shocking revelation, which is what? That the quintiles in between, or the income groups in between, say from a per capita per month income of 3,800 to a per capita per month income of 12,000, 90% people say that their incomes have declined. Why? These are 85% who are even earning lower than them, and this 66%, but this is 90%, a hopping 90%. Why? This is because these people, the lower quantile people, were at least agricultural laborers or had agricultural land. Okay, and they were food vendors, so they could actually carry on their economic activities even during the lockdown, so that the income decline was not as significant, or they have not completely perished. Now, what is the importance of this data for us? This data can actually help us in targeting relief. Okay, this data can actually help us in targeting relief, that we can see, because, and why we want to do that, because see, we have limited resources. So if we have empirical evidences, if we have a trajectory of who needs the assistance most, it is imperative for the government, for the bureaucrats to actually identify who needs the resources most and at which time. So this analysis can help us in targeting the relief packages that are being given out by the government right now. Next, let's come to the urban rural divide. So as compared, so in the rural areas, 88% of people have said that they have reported a fall in income during the lockdown period, as compared to 75% of the urban households. For a similar reason, that we are the correlation has been that in the urban households, people, the salaried people can stay at home and work, so there is not as much loss of income. There have been income cuts, but not a total loss of income, which is not so in the rural areas where employment is not so prevalent, first thing, and you cannot actually do online work and still earn money. The third is, so that again brings us to the same question. We can target relief more to the rural areas, which is already being done in, say, in Rajasthan. They are giving a floor to the rural people by making Manrega fully functional. Now, the next thing is, the third observation was based on the states. So, 4 or 5 states, so the five most affected states which have reported a huge decline in income per month per capita income are Tripura, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Haryana, Bihar. And it is not because the outbreak was very huge, because Haryana or Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh, in fact, Chhattisgarh has reported very limited cases, and same is the case with Tripura and Jharkhand. But why then is the loss in income too huge? Because even the small outbreak has caused a huge havoc there, because we can attribute it to the following factors. The per capita income is already very less. The occupational composition before the lockdown wasn't also very impressive. People were majorly engaged in agriculture, and these are all tribal dominated areas. The lockdown severity, it was almost similar around the country, at least in the first few phases, and then it was lifted up in Tripura and Chhattisgarh. It was not that high. Effectiveness of delivery of aid. Now, this is a difficult point because these areas are actually inaccessible due to their forest cover, say Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, and Tripura, and due to their low social indicators. Okay. So finally, we come to the point that uh, 14% of our sample, this article mentions that 14% of the sample that was surveyed has already actually run out of funds to sail them through the coronavirus. So it's imperative that government takes immediate steps to help those people who are most in need of the economic help. Now, this is an important science news. Okay. So, and for more, because I take classes on science and technology on Unacademy, and we'll be covering 200 most important topics for science and technology. You, for further science related news, you can watch my lectures there. Now, it talks about a key reproduction number. So it says virus spread slowing, key reproduction number 1.29 until May 10. Now, reproduction number is denoted by R. So how do you measure the rate? So those who are engineers, they know there is a certain rate at which a thing goes. Mostly exponential growth is there, at least in virus spread, because one person infects the another, or another two, and two infects four, and four infects six, and that's how, four infects eight, and that's how the cycle keeps going on. In fact, good news in India is that the virus doubled itself in 11 days, unlike other nations where it doubled in 2 days. So, key production number here means how many people on an average are being infected by one person. Why this number is important and why this date is important, we'll discuss here. So, the basic reproduction number actually starts from R naught. Zero is called naught in scientific language. So R naught. R naught is the primary number. That is, in the beginning, on an average, how many number of people were being infected by one infected person. Okay. And the reproduction number, or R, is basically a terminology used in the study of infectious diseases. Okay. Now, earlier it was 1.83. That is when Corona started. One person could infect 1.83 other people. But now, one person can infect only 1.29 other people. So there is a reduction in R naught, or there's a reduction in R. Okay. So the first observation is known as R naught or R0. Henceforth, the numbers are known as R, or the reproduction number. Now, it is used. Why is this R number used? To assess the severity of the outbreak. Say, if we were saying it was 9 or 10, that meant our number was 9 or 10, it meant that one person could actually infect 9 or 10 people. That means if I sneeze, I end up infecting my entire family and 2, 3 of my neighbors as well. So that's not a very good scenario. Okay. Lastly, it says why has or what is being what governs the transmission rate. So what happened in India was there was an outbreak in few states, and then the other states also got infected because of the interstate and intrastate transfers. But apart from a few states, which we'll discuss here, the worst hit states and UTs, the other states had a contained growth. For example, Kerala almost has a flattened curve. Now, since the beginning of the May, Kerala has actually reached zero new positive cases. So that's a flattened curve. So they have a contained growth, or the growth has reduced. Okay. That's all I have already told you. The R naught, or the indicating the initial transmission rate, was 1.8. Now, why this May 10 date becomes important is between April 13 to May 10, okay, as per the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai, between these two dates, the R number has actually remained steady at 1.29. That means we've actually been able to contain the spread of infection, at least limited to this number. So one person is only infected to the other 1.29 people. So somehow we can say that the strategy of lockdown, the strategy of social distancing, the communication, constant communication, quarantine, and treatment of people has actually paid off. Now, Tamil Nadu has the highest R number of 2.01. That means one person is impacting two other people. Now, here, this map shows the states with the largest outbreaks. It's Gujarat, Maharashtra, Bombay, we already know, is in a very, very dire strait. Tamil Nadu, and okay, coming to our next piece of news today, science with heritage. So it's becoming important. It's a science news as well as a general news, because it's actually becoming important that we look at towards the Indian systems of medicine apart from the allopathy or the Western systems of medicine. So the present government actually tried to align Ayurveda with modern knowledge. That's why this article is important. What they did was they earlier it was Department of Ayurveda, Yoga, Naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, and Homeopathy. This is Ayush. Okay. Now they have made it a full-fledged ministry in 2014. Also in 2016, the Ayush ministry declared Dhanteras. So Dhanvantri Pujan. Dhanteras is celebrated after Dhanvantri, who was a ancient pharmacist. Okay, was considered to be an ancient pharmacist. So Dhanvantri Pujan is there a day before Diwali, or which is called Dhanteras, and then we have the Diwali as Ayurveda Day. Then the budget for Ayush Ministry has also increased or almost doubled. So it was around 1,000 crores in 2014-15 when it was made a ministry, and now 5 years later, the budget is almost doubled to 2,000 crores. It's very easy to remember. Again, All India Ayurveda Institute has been set up in at AIMS Delhi, which has actually given it a permanent place for research and development, and it has made it a distinct entity. Additionally, the important thing is an Ayurvedic doctor is actually the secretary of Ayush and not an IAS officer. So in all the ministries, the secretary is an IAS officer, as all you are future civil servants must be knowing that IAS officers are the secretaries to the departments or ministries. But here, an Ayurvedic doctor or a specialist has been made the secretary of Ayush. Now, this is a connected news item. As I was talking in the beginning, that this lockdown, government had said, will be different than the lockdowns which have existed previously, because this time we've realized that we'll have to devolve power, and finally it will be the states and the local government which will actually have to take the initiatives and decide for themselves how best to contain the epidemic while balancing their economic needs. Okay, so in that case, center plans to take states' views in categorizing zones and heed the difference. Now, this was an editorial. This delineates why the center should take states' views in categorizing zones. Okay. Now, When the so as you must have heard that before the announcement of the fourth lockdown, that is before yesterday's PM's address, there was a marathon session run by Prime Minister Narendra Modi with all the chief ministers. It is said it was around 6 hours long. In that, a couple of states like Maharashtra, Telangana, Punjab, West Bengal, where the state is very, very dire due to coronavirus because infections are an all-time number high, as we already saw the map that Maharashtra is really, really suffering a lot. So they said that you should extend the lockdown beyond May 17. CMs of some other states like Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra said that why are you starting off the passenger trains if we take those people back, because Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra have a lot of people working either abroad or in different states. So if they come back, how will we manage the influx and the containment of the epidemic? So they said, why are you doing it 2 days? Because they might get infected when they come here. In fact, in a famous statement, the CM of Bihar also said that he was a railway minister prior. So he should have been asked. He was a central railway minister, so he should have been asked why this thing is being done. What the states are saying that to contain the coronavirus, we should actually not be compromising the impact on economy. Then what happened? The center in the beginning gave the directions that for 21 days, if you do not observe any case, it becomes a green zone. Okay, and the others are red, and red zones is where more than where there has been a severe outbreak, and orange zone falls somewhere in between. Okay, the states contend saying that if there is even a single positive case in the green zone, then the all the markets have to shut down, the factories have to shut down, the industrial units cannot resume their operations, the e-commerce and non-essential items is also shut down. So basically, one case actually shuts down the entire economy of that place, and which is not very viable. Okay, so let us decide what or when and where we want to call the green zones. You can give us broad directions, but do not try to delineate the green or the red or the orange zones for us. So, at that point of time, when the lockdown was extended or the third lockdown happened, the Ministry of Home Affairs actually came up with a list with around 130 or to 280 districts which were delineated as per the green, red, and the orange zones. So in that case, the entire red zone districts have to be shut down, even when there might be areas which are completely free of the virus. Now, in fact, the Delhi CM Kejriwal also pointed out, and why it was real also. It's like a case study kind of a thing. So Delhi is a very densely populated place. Okay, but there are certain areas which can be completely free of corona. There are certain areas which cannot be free of corona, but you cannot shut down the entire district, because if you do that, how are you actually going to take care of all the economic activities that are going otherwise, or even the daily essential activities which are going? So it's not very practicable, at least for a place like Delhi. Lastly, in fact, there is a proof why states are better handling it, because Kerala, Karnataka, Odisha, and parts of Rajasthan and Telangana have actually acted as a model state who have been able to contain the corona graph, as I already mentioned, that Kerala has been able to achieve a flattened curve. In fact, Kerala is being made out a case study worldwide because of their immense contract tracing activities. So there's a case for actually states taking over. And then India is a huge country with different demographics, economic and cultural diversity, so we cannot have a one size fits approach. So you can give us broad principles, but micro planning has to be left to the states. Now, what do states want to do? States are saying we'll designate smaller areas rather than the entire districts at red or orange zones. Green zones, they are fine. With green zones, they are fine, but for the red or orange zones, we are not going to take entire districts. We are actually going to declare containment zones. Okay. Say an area called Ramganj in my city. If it was a hard hit area, then you cannot declare the entire city to be a red zone. We will contain the virus in that area and declare it to be a red zone. The second thing that said was that even the World Health Organization said a similar thing. There was an article by the WHO director where he said that this thing now needs to go through the state and the local level, where the local level institutions as well as the community and the people need to contribute and collaborate to actually generate awareness regarding the virus, to take steps regarding the virus, and develop their own plan on how to control its spread. So states have asked for flexibility because they say they know the ground reality is better. Okay. Again, one positive case, as I already mentioned, in a major municipal or corporation will put the whole district into red zone. Maybe a ward of that municipal area is enough to contain it. That's what they said. And they, in fact, Punjab, Karnataka, Delhi, and Rajasthan. Punjab was very vociferous in saying that, we should decide what districts or what parts, how we are supposed to treat our districts, what is the extent of relaxation should be given so that we can balance economic activities and disease control. In relation to this is the article here which says living with the virus. Now this is a beautiful article because it does two things. First, it lists out what was wrong with the containment strategy or why we have not been able to eliminate the virus. The second, it gives effective ways post lockdown, okay, for the prevention. Okay. So it said that now we have actually, so Love Agarwal, who's the health secretary, said that we'll actually have to learn to live with the virus. So that means the centralized strategy of containment and elimination is no longer viable, which we've already seen even as people. Why? Because containment and elimination is actually an option for small, well-governed countries like South Korea did it, because they could actually do contact tracing on a very quick and large scale, where there is technical and financial heft both, which we were kind of lacking, and that's why we have the self-line mission coming into a picture. Lastly, containment has actually led to a lot of ordeal for our migrant workers. First, we wanted them to stay where they were, and now we want them to move to the other states. And now the states are actually requesting them to come back because the manufacturing concerns want to start up. So they've faced a lot of problems due to and forth traveling and might have been infected as well due to logistics. Again, the Ministry of Railways also found the logistics to be very difficult because they were operating trains on a new schedule and actually coordinating with the regional agencies. Because the modus operandi or the method of operation to receive the workers at each station or in each state will be different. So railways had to coordinate with that and also take care of the social distancing norms. So you're not transferring the uh, virus en masse. Now, also containment cannot work. For example, in Dharavi itself, there were 1,000 cases a couple of days ago. How do you do the containment strategy there? The houses are so closely spaced. You have to go out for work. You have to bring groceries. There's little surplus as home. And it is very difficult to maintain social distance there. So it has aggravated the situation. Again, we also have very poor per capita availability of medical care, which has led to delay in response to people who are actually suffering. And then block quarantine has actually kind of been collective punishment because sometimes it has led to stigma of people, and we've already seen certain lynching cases. So essentially, what the author of the article was saying that we do not need to change the behavior, but we need to change the way we plan to contain such pandemics. The way forward, if you have a paper and pencil, I would request you to please take down these 8 points. They are very important, very crisply written for the way forward on how to manage the corona crisis effectively once the fourth lockdown comes into practice or it is lifted, or a post lockdown world. First, states, the community, and regional institutions, all of them will have to find effective ways to manage the pandemic and come together. The National Disaster Management Act actually requires various plans to be produced at the national, state, and district level. So, if you must be knowing, the NDMA Act, as it is called, works on the three levels: national, state, and district level. And we should actually have a disaster preparedness at all these three levels, which should again be aligned to the national objective of containing the pandemic. We can actually use it to our advantage. We also need to prepare our villages and city wards. Just today, the CM of Rajasthan said that okay, 19 lakh migrant workers will be coming back to Rajasthan. Okay, and 4 or 5 lakh have decided to go out. We have to ensure that the corona does not spread around in the villages, because where the community is very closed and it's very difficult to maintain social distancing, because you actually share water and other daily usage things, right? Especially when you are going to the wells fetching water, so that's the time when it can spread a lot. Then he says we need to have scientific parameters around the disease. So, there are already undergoing studies on how, which kind of geographies are witnessing a lot of cases. Say, Africa is witnessing very few cases. Which kind of social background gets impacted first? What are the responses of the people from various social, economic backgrounds or various geographies? In Bihar, the malaria drug itself could actually cure a lot of people because of the herd immunity. So that kind of data we need to collect so that it will help us plan better in both clinical and logistical matters. Again, we have to make people understand actual risk and mortalities so that the compliance becomes easier and you do not have to use Section 188 or other draconian measures. Okay. It will also provide the basis for designing village level guidelines and returning migrants. As I already mentioned, people will be returning back. So if people understand the actual risk, they will be taking caution on their own. So now it's no more in the hand of the government. It's people like us who will be taking the fight against corona further. Quarantine rotations, accessing common resources, as I just mentioned, say water or other places of public use. Okay. Then till now our risk perceptions have been based on upper salaried class. That's kind of a blind spot with every policy making, which so these people can actually work from home, but what about the people who work on a farm, work in a unit or run a shop? So we have to make them aware. We need to change their behavior, or we need to see what we can do to actually change their behavior so that they take precautions. Logistics of preparedness, we need to have the logistics in place. So there is no alternative to better medical care or availability of medical care in case somebody falls sick. So more hospital beds, distribution, okay, and hospital beds, their distribution should be even. Like right now it's more in the urban areas, very few in the rural areas. So how do you transfer people? People might catch virus during transportation itself. Ambulance services, public transports, and basic amenities. Then we need to actually have periodic assessments. How will we actually be prepared for such kind of logistics is when we have periodic assessments by regional institutions themselves, kind of social audit, right? To would ensure that obvious lacunae are overcome and any shortfall in equipment or manpower are met in a structured manner. Okay? What's the best way to do it? Community support. The community comes together, funds it, gets in. So there's a lot of charity already going around. They get their funds together, set up hospitals, meet the manpower or the equipment requirement. This can be best done by the community. The government can only provide certain support. We all have to come together for it, is what he's trying to say here. And finally, states need to build empirical and analytical foundation, as I already mentioned. If you have the numbers, if you have the statistics right, it's actually easier to give targeted relief. The way we discussed in the household survey thing, that if you know where there is a problem, you can actually give a targeted relief. So that's what here it is. And lastly, we come to the PIB article for today. So the Jal Jeevan mission of government is basically to provide safe and adequate drinking water through taps to all the households by 2024, right? And what are the things that they want to do there is not just provide them with tap connections, but also recharge and reuse of water, water recycling, water conservation, rainwater harvesting, building a community approach towards preserving water and towards maintaining the water resources is what it wants to do. And education and communication will be a key component of the mission. What are FHTCs? Is functional household tap connections. It's a term commonly used with the Jal Jeevan mission, which is also called JJM. It was launched on the Independence Day in 2019, and the PM announced the scheme from the Red Fort. Okay. Now, what are the challenges faced in drinking water sector? So first, the rainfall patterns are actually changing. Okay, so that means we actually cannot predict which area will be suffering from a drought in the coming times or a flood in the coming times. Second, the water quality issues. We all know there's a severe arsenic, fluoride, and chlorine poisoning in certain areas of the country. Then there is inadequate infrastructure. So we do not have infrastructure to provide last mile delivery of water. So how do you set up a tap connection in inaccessible areas, say hilly areas or northeastern areas? Or how do you increase the amount of water that comes off a tap? So right now it can be lesser than 40 LPCD. So we have to bring it up to 55 LPCD. That's a measurement of the amount of water coming out of the tap. Then we have poor operations and maintenance. So government makes the infrastructure, but then you have to maintain it. If you don't maintain it, there'll be leakages, wastage of water. So that is what is happening. Lack of resource efficiency. So even when you provide water, people have to be responsible enough to consume it in a efficient manner. There should be minimum leakages, minimum wastage, and that's why we had certain irrigation practices, new irrigation practices like drip irrigation practices coming in to preserve water. Less community involvement. So what happens is a lot of agencies are actually involved in delivering water till your households. For example, the local government is there. There are other engineering and construction agencies, the PWD, a lot of agencies are actually involved in doing that. So what happens in that case? There's a lot of coordination challenge. Okay, so we need to have a single line of accountability and alignment in what all these agencies are trying to do. Lastly, community involvement. So as per the 73rd amendment, the responsibility of drinking water was actually devolved up to the local government, but local government has limited financing, and they're mostly not involved in the policy making part of it. So nobody asks the local government, okay, we are trying to change the mission or we are trying to incorporate these elements. They are simply given the production and engineering work or the engineering and maintenance work, so they're not involved in that. Lastly, Haryana, this item is in news because Haryana and JNK have both geared up to provide tap connections by December 2022, so 2 years before, because it's a pet project of our PM. And he says because water is very imperative and it should reach people as soon as possible, because during the corona times it's still more difficult for people to get water, and if they have to travel out and use public sources of drinking water, then there are higher chances of infection. So there are certain components of JJM or the Jal Jeevan mission. First is they will try to provide tap connection everywhere using pipe water supply. They will try to develop reliable drinking sources and augment existing sources, try to recycle water and help communities in water conservation, rainwater harvesting. They will try to retrofit the taps and increase the capacity of the taps. And there is grey water management. This term means all the wastewater except for toilet water. So if we can preserve this kind of water, which is called grey water, if we can preserve it, then we can actually reuse a lot of it. So it's part of water recycling. So that brings me to the end of our session. The activity gyan for today is, please prepare a summary of whatever we have learned today. Today was a very, very important day. Lots of news, lots of new things that have come up. The vision of the government has entirely changed. In fact, coronavirus has given us a new vision. So it's important that you make a summary of today's lecture in 200 words and post it in the comments section. Also, if you have any additional queries, क्या पढ़ना है, कैसे पढ़ना है, क्यों पढ़ना है, why to read something, what to read, where to find it, please post it in the comment section. I will be more than happy to help. Also, if you like my lecture, please give me a good rating. If you do not like my lecture, please give me feedback what you would want me to change. This is the Telegram group link for current affairs. Here I keep people updated on what is going to be my next lecture, when am I going to take it. And here is my broadcasting link where I actually tell about my incoming lectures and I also share notes. In both the places, I share the notes and summaries of the lectures that I take. So if you like the way I give the lecture, it would be nice if you could join these groups so we can interact on a daily basis. Thank you, folks. Again, if you like the video, if it really helps you out, please hit the bell icon for the notifications. Subscribe to our channel. Let's crack UPSC CSE in English, and use my code SPUS in case you want to get a UPSC CSE in English subscription. You will be offered an instant 10% discount, which will reduce the course cost to 36,000 for 1 year and 43,200 for 2 years. This is again my link for the important science and technology topics you can't miss for 2020. So that's all, guys, for today. And I'll be back tomorrow with loads of other news and important article and news items, which we'll be discussing in details that we are fully prepared for UPSC mains and prelims. Thank you and have a good day.